Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Nyman, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Soberocity. We are so much more than a blog. We provide sober events and an opportunity for members to interact with each other on the Soberocity.com wall and in our Soberocity Facebook group. We now have a brand new Patreon page, which can be found at patreon.com/Soberocity. By becoming a member, you can support panel discussions like the one we are hosting tonight. Soberocity aims to change the perception of what it means to live a sober life and make it attainable for all. For us, sobriety is a spectrum, and we fully embrace all looking to join our community, for together we are infinitely strong. Tonight, we will be honoring sober moms everywhere in honor of this weekend being Mother's Day with our Sobriety and Motherhood panel. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our host for tonight, Martha Duke. Founder of Out Loud Recovery, Martha Duke is 3 years sober from alcohol, a single mom of two, raising her boys in Manhattan. Out Loud Recovery isn't just a blog, but a mission to break the stigma surrounding addiction and recovery. Through sober meetups, Instagram, and podcast appearances, Martha shares her story of surviving childhood trauma, sexual assault, and domestic violence to come out on the other side sassier and stronger than ever. Being a sober mom is among her greatest joys. Within a session with iced coffee and her favorite artist, Prince, she breaks the sober stigma by remaining true to herself with the motto, "Sober, not dead." Take it away, Martha.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I am so excited to be hosting this and part of this. Some of my most favorite people in the whole wide world are here. So we have myself, obviously. And I checked my counter today, 3 years, 4 months sober, which honestly, when I started my sober journey, I didn't put a clock on it. I just said, I'm going to get sober, things work out, because things weren't going so hot. I had an ACS case, and my boundaries were awful. And, I was just like, I'm going to get sober till things got better. And then things got so good. I was like, I'm not getting off this sober train. It's freaking awesome. So I hate to sound like that person that's like, hey, sobriety's the best thing ever, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. So some of the ladies that have helped me on this journey that we are also celebrating today, my friend Erin, Ranta of REVA Recovery. We have we have Michelle Smith of Recovery is the New Black, and Jen Elizabeth, who was one of my first Instagram friends, and probably she taught me so much, and I'm always forever indebted to her, because before her, I had never heard of the mother wound, and I was like, oh wow, it's okay for your moms to screw you up, because they don't tell you that. There's a lot of like, and yes, on this day of motherhood, I think we should respect and love mothers, but the mother wound and childhood trauma is part of my story. So that is why I feel so grateful to have all my favorite ladies here today, because I surprisingly have only had one Mother's Day that was ever about me in the 17 years of my kid's life. So yes, this is a big deal for me, and I have a cute puppy. Want me to throw a toy? And let's just round robin real quick and let everybody introduce themselves, sober time, and how many kids you got, and whatever little nugget you want to throw in there. We can start. I'm just gonna Erin.
Hi, I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Soberocity. And hi, Jen and Michelle. I'm Erin, and I live in New York City, in Long Island City, right over the bridge from Martha. And I have one daughter. She is 13 months old. I had her just days before the pandemic shut down in New York City over at Tisch Hospital. I have been sober 5 years, and I got sober to save my life. I had severe liver disease. I had been using drugs and alcohol for 25 years. But I ended up having cirrhosis at age 37. So I had to stop drinking. It took me many, many years after I started my illness discovery to even finally stop. But I never thought I'd be able to have a child. I was deemed infertile after my use and all that. And then, a couple years later, I ended up that I was able to have a child, and it happened. And, I was 42 and I had her, and here I am. So I recently founded with Adrienne Vanderbock REVA Recovery. It's a recovery program that encompasses using the body and holistic practices and somatic practices and implementing daily habits just to enhance your life and enhance your recovery. It's kind of a supplemental program. So that's a little bit about me, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, Erin. Yeah, your story has always been so inspiring to me, just because especially right now, post-pandemic, we're seeing a rise in issues with liver and cirrhosis and pancreatitis, all these things linked to pandemic drinking. And I find your story powerful in that it can happen, it does happen, and once you know and hear someone's personal story, it becomes so real to you that it is possible. It's not just something we read in a paper. So I look forward to hearing more.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. I was 37 when I had cirrhosis, and not that the job matters, but I was a Pilates instructor. So, this stuff does not discriminate, but you can heal, which is the beauty of it. So, yeah.
Okay, Jen. Hello. I love you so much.
I love you too. Hello, everybody. My name is Jen Elizabeth. And excuse me, I have a sore throat. I apologize. I live in Southern California. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. I just celebrated 10 years sobriety on Saturday. Woo. I know, a pretty big deal. I am a harm reduction specialist with the Sidewalk project, which we have a concerted effort in the Skid Row community. I am a host of the Sober Mom Squad, which is a community for moms who are, curious about their relationship with alcohol. I think it's important that you brought that up about the mother wound, because I think that Mother's Day can be really challenging for a lot of us. And, trauma is definitely in my story, childhood trauma and childhood sexual abuse and a mother wound. And, sobriety really saved my physical life. I was living on the streets under a bridge and eating from garbage cans and, the whole thing. But trauma work really saved my recovery. And so I think it's super important that we talk about trauma. I think that we're learning so much more every year about how deep the connection between trauma and addiction is. And I think just talking about substances does a complete disservice to people who have the possibility to have extremely beautiful lives in recovery. So yeah, that's kind of my thing. I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and I love all these ladies on here. So
I know, you're right, Jen. That completely. Mother's Day was never my favorite day ever. I had a narcissistic mother, so even once I became a mother, it was all about her. And it was like, when do I get a Mother's Day? But honestly, my 2 boys are so fantastic. Every day feels like Mother's Day. So
they are fantastic.
I know, baby bear loves you.
I love them. They're the best.
But yeah, as far as the trauma saving and recovery, I love that because for me, like I was saying before, I didn't go into recovery with this being a long-term deal, but I got into therapy. And then once I did start healing, like the trauma aspect of my life, that's when I saw my recovery really like blossom into what it is. I mean, it's not just stopping drinking, it's healing, you know? So I love it. Thank you, Jen. Michelle.
Hello, everybody. Happy early Mother's Day to all you fantastic mamas here and out there. I am Michelle Smith. I am also known as Recovery is the New Black on some multiple platforms here in the World Wide Web. I am a mom of two. What is my kids this days? They are 8 and 11. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I am an addictions and mental health counselor by day. I have 20 years experience working in the correctional system, pretty much developing and implementing treatment programs, mental health programs, and substance abuse programs within the Department of Corrections to really try to reintegrate and rehabilitate offenders back into the community because they're going to be our neighbors. And just like Erin was talking, this disease does not discriminate and no one is immune. I was an addictions counselor and I was numbing myself with 2 and 3 bottles of wine and prescription drugs at night. And so, I spend my evenings motivating and encouraging women, especially mothers, that there's a different way to explore your relationship with alcohol before it becomes problematic, and really trying to normalize sobriety and a boozy culture. And it's really a rebellious act to do. And I know how extremely difficult it is. And so, hosting also at the Sober Mom Squad and just really trying to get my voice to the people who need to hear it. And these messages that, like we're doing tonight, that I hope that I know that this will get in the hands of women and men who need to hear what we have to say. And, reflecting back, I have 4.5 years of sobriety, and it took me 7 years to finally get this last day one to stick. And so, reflecting back on, 6 years ago, today, I was walking into inpatient treatment and missed my Mother's Day, missed my husband and our wedding anniversary, missed my daughter's birthday. And it was the hardest thing that I ever did, but I knew that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be alive to see any other ones. And so being an adult orphan, again, Mother's Day is really hard when you're losing your mom as you're becoming a mom, which again played into, my disease being the perfect breeding ground for this predisposition to alcoholism to really flourish. And so sure, this whole boozy culture didn't make me do anything. I did what I did and I made the choices, but it was definitely the perfect breeding ground for my predisposition to alcoholism to flourish. And so, my secrets kept me sick and isolated and not accountable. And I don't want others to have to go through that. And I'm just so honored to be here and to see how many conversations we're having in this world now, more than ever is this needed. And so, I just hope that you guys all here can be inspired by listening to some of our stories of hope and redemption to know that you're not alone. Thank you guys for having me here.
Thank you, Michelle. I love that point, and your stories always it brought to light. I had only really known people who were like me, who had started drinking like 13, 14 years old, like coping with. And when you think about it, it's a very common narrative. Traumatic home life, bad home life, start drinking at 13, hard drugs by 17, blah, blah, blah. But I love that you bring to light that motherhood and our culture can be a breeding ground as well. And that is not adequately talked about, and it's not an uncommon narrative at all. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Michelle. And I am going to share just a little bit about my story, and then I'll pose a question. Everybody just share your story and answer the question. Okay. So my sobriety journey, first of all, I got pregnant at 18. So I was a mother. I had my son my oldest son when I was 19, and my youngest son is probably just turned 23. And at that point in my life, I'd already went through quite a bit. I'd already, been childhood trauma, sexual assault, lost my father, multiple sexual assaults. And in my son's first 2 years of life, I got 4 DUIs. I had to change his diapers it's embarrassing to say it, but these are things I have to say now to share my story, but my son's diapers got changed in jailhouse visit, and I remember them not letting me take him into the bathroom to change him because people hide things in the diapers. And I was like, oh, I never think of that. And then, I had my second son, and I moved to New York, and part of me thought moving to New York was going to be this, and moving to New York has turned out to be the best decision I ever made for my family. My kids have gotten opportunities and done things like I never dreamed they would be able to do. But I moved here thinking things would be different. I ended up in a domestic violence situation, and I left that, and my drinking escalated until I think it was my 4th ACS case. I had 4 ACS cases. My 4th ACS case, they looked back at my case folder and were basically ready to just take my kids. And as far as the stuff, what Jen has talked about with harm reduction, about meeting everybody where they're at, the system very much did not meet me where I was at. It was very much like, pass all these drug tests and get us out of your life. And they offered me very little support. When I would relapse, I was unable to tell anybody, because even though I demanded a therapist and they had me go into 12-step meetings, if I told anybody I had relapsed, they could come take my kids. So when I did make the decision to get sober, it was after a suicide attempt, because I was alone on Christmas. And I was used to being alone on Christmas, but because my mom would always take my kids for Christmas and I wasn't welcome. I could have went, but I wasn't going to subject myself to that environment. But the last year, I wasn't invited to even, had ACS involved. My mother, I was ready to get her out of my life. And I was alone on Christmas. I attempted suicide, and I woke up and I said, this is never going to happen again. I'm going to choose life. And I quit. And a year later, I was very lucky to spend my 1 year sober with Jen Elizabeth herself in Phoenix with my baby bear. And motherhood, since getting sober, I always tried, and I was trying my best to give my kids everything and give them living in Manhattan, going to good schools. They had nice clothes, they had all the toys, but at the end of the day, they really didn't have me. And so now I just feel like our whole little bubble in our world is complete. And so sobriety is that moment when I truly felt like I am a mom, like a mom in the vision of what I had in my head, the kind of mother I wanted to be. And that mother was going to be the total opposite of what I had growing up. I wanted to be an emotionally available mom. I wanted to say I love you all the time and mean it. I wanted to be the kind of mom that would drop everything for her kids, and I wasn't that kind of mom when I was sitting at a bar, because I did not drop that drink for my kids, and I'm sorry, I have a dog eating my sweater right now. It's really cute. So anyway, but sobriety, I credit for letting me be that mom that I always wanted to be. I'll just assume it's getting hot. So anyway, the question I just want to pose to you guys is, how has sobriety contributed to you being a mother? And also, what kind of, did you picture yourself being a mother? Like, was that in your plan? And how has your journey fit into what you wanted and expected versus what really happened? So I will mute and we'll go to Erin, just kind of go with popcorn.
Hi. I, throughout my whole life, I never really was sober. So I actually never allowed myself to picture being a mother. I deeply wanted to. Now I know that, but I never let myself go there, because I always thought either I don't deserve that, or I will never get that, or I will never sober up to get that. So, to get that being a child, but I never let myself think about it. I never opened my heart to that thought. And if I did, I said, well, no, that's not for me. I can be independent without. But deep down, I did want to be a mother. So once I discovered that I was able to, I allowed myself to be happy about it. But it took a long time to let that feeling in. And then, sobriety for me is the only way motherhood is possible. I definitely know that I'm there for her in a way I couldn't be if I wasn't sober. That's for sure. My focus was only on using before. My health was so poor at the end, last 2 years of my using, that I wouldn't have had probably the energy to take care of a baby at all. It's, just a different life all in all for me. So I feel really lucky that I'm able to physically be healthy enough to be there for her, and mentally, it just takes a lot of mental clarity that I didn't have before either. Is there another question there I missed?
No, I think you kind of answered it, just because I know, because you're just talking about the whole point of it is just kind of like, what kind of mother did you see yourself, or if you even saw yourself a mother. And and I relate to, I always thought it was strange. I was like, that I got pregnant at 18 because I was told that I couldn't have kids. So I wasn't exactly careful.
Yeah.
And then I had a kid, and I was like, oh, and I had never considered myself maternal. So I was like, this is going to be fun. And I remember being terrified I was going to have a daughter. And that was because my mom wasn't a good mom to me. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Like, she's crying over a boy. I don't know what to do in those situations, which is an awesome lead. But Erin, you did answer all the questions here. Amazing. This is a good lead into Jen, because I've had this conversation with Jen before, where it was like, once I found out I was having boys, I kind of had this like sigh of relief, because I was like, oh, maybe, I have a chance to not screw them up. But Jen has a beautiful son and a super cute daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a really good question. From my very first memories growing up, I was treated pretty much subhuman, unlovable, worthless. And You know, all of my mother's pain became who I saw when I looked in the mirror. And you know, I really carried that. I really have carried that and had carried that with me throughout my life. And, you know, being a childhood sexual abuse survivor, you know, that was really the only love that I was ever shown before. And so, you know, I went through life thinking that all I'm really worth is to let people touch me. And, you know, I'm not lovable. I'm broken. I'm damaged, all those things. Right. And so that carried on through my addiction, that carried on in prison. You know, that's how you are treated when you use drugs. That's how you're treated when you're a sex worker. That's how you're treated when you're an inmate. So when I got out of prison, you know, I got sober in prison, and I got pregnant with my son. You know, and I was doing traditional recovery, and I was, you know, doing the whole thing where it's all about the drugs and my behaviors, right? It's all about the drugs and my behaviors. And if you just figure out what the fuck is wrong with you, then you're going to be fixed. And if it's not working, if you're suffering and you're not working it hard enough, and trauma is an outside issue and sexual stuff is an outside issue. And, you know, about 6 months pregnant, I thought about ending both of our lives. And I think it's important that I talk about that, because I think we carry so much mom shame. I think we put a lot of emphasis on sober moms. But I want you to know, anybody who's listening who's maybe not sober yet, or maybe is sober and still struggling, that you're not broken. You know, that we are women, and sometimes we have a lot of wounds. And it's very difficult to work through those wounds without support. And I was terrified because I believed that I wasn't capable of even being a human being. I just thought that I was absolutely ruined. And there's no way that I could ever love. How do I know how to be a mom? I only know what happened with my mom. I don't know how to be a woman, how to be a mom. And I remember sitting in the dark by myself in front of a computer, and I Googled sexual abuse, and you know, it just, my whole world blew up for me, because I really realized that, you know, how important support is and how important community is, and how important it is to have a safe place where you can talk about whatever it is you're feeling, even if you're not sober, even if you're just curious about being sober, even if you're just struggling. And yeah, so I did not, obviously I'm alive. My son is here. And I remember when my son was born, they laid him on my chest, and I looked down at this pink little body, and just for the first time in my life, I felt capable, just capable, you know, not like I was going to be perfect or great, or that I was going to be good even, but I just felt capable of life and capable of love. And, you know, I parented through a lot of trauma. And although I was a sober mom, I got sober before I had children. Parenting through unresolved trauma can also be very debilitating. And so that's probably why I don't put so much emphasis on the alcohol or the drugs so much, because there is so much more. And for me, being sober has been a gift that I am able to see deeper into myself and heal those wounds. I think it's it's like the catalyst for me. It's been the catalyst for everything else. And, I'm not broken, and I've never been broken, which is really big to feel that way, to know that I'm not perfect, but I'm not broken. And, I have a chance to do things different with my kids. I have a chance to let them know that they're accepted and loved exactly as they are. And I think that's, such a beautiful, gift. And in that, in loving my kids, and in seeing how much pain I was in before, I'm able to also put some of the things that my mother went through and how she wasn't able or willing or both to see us, her kids. And I realized that it explains a lot to me. I understand a lot, and I feel empathy for her. And I think that in healing that wound, it also helps me heal my own wounds about my own motherhood, and the ways I did things in the beginning. And yeah, I didn't ever vision myself as a mom, because I never really visioned myself as anything. Just an animal, pretty much. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question.
No,
Questions?
it totally does. It totally
Okay.
does. And I just want to say, yeah, no, I feel everything you said, just because a lot. And what's crazy is my family knows this. They know that my drinking and drug use goes back to me reporting to my mom when I was 13 and raped, and her not doing anything. I mean, they didn't give me a hug. And it was just kind of at that point, it was like, okay, well, I guess you're just a slut. Like, and there was, I grew up in the church, so obvious, things happened. But also, I haven't, it was really, I thank you a lot, just for being a part of my recovery since the beginning, because I needed to see it as from the perspective of someone whose self-esteem, basically, when you're raised to have no self-esteem, how are you expected to be good at anything? I thought I was, and I found out later, and through a lot of soul searching and through the clarity of sobriety, I see that my mom used me to project all the problems she was having onto me. And then all of a sudden, so I didn't even know what my own emotions felt like or were. So the line got very blurred between where she started and I began, and that went on into my adult life. And so that's another thing I try so hard, just to let my kids be their own people, but accepting and loving them, which Baby Bear came to me and asked me to paint his nails. He wanted them black and green. And I know if I had ever went to my parents and been like, can I, dye my hair a crazy color, they would have been mad at me. I'm like, yeah, son, go get that nail polish. But I love it, Jen. I love it. And thank you so much, Michelle. So Michelle, I have to say your name funny. That's just my thing. I'm like, Michelle.
So, mine's a little bit different. I always envisioned being the mom. I had the perfect example of what I wanted that to look like. And so I did it. I worked really hard to create a life that I wanted, that I deserved, that I thrived, and I fought for it, and I was living it. And after the birth of my first daughter, life was really good. It was beautiful. And life doesn't stay that way forever. And my husband was deployed. My mom got sick chronically, was on hospice immediately, and had my son, and he had some health issues. I started having health issues, and I just, I fell into that whole idea of like I was diagnosed with postpartum depression finally. Like I just started having all of these intrusive thoughts, and I never thought that I was going to be good enough for anything, and I was failing at life and failing at this whole motherhood thing, and it looked so easy from the outside of other people's social media, and I was just comparing myself to something that wasn't realistic and was never real to start with, and I never measured my worth and my expectations for myself before motherhood and then during motherhood, of working multiple jobs to find financial freedom, and trying to do this kid thing on my own, worrying about if my husband's still alive in a different, place in the world. And the world got really super heavy really quick. And, you know, I lost myself in that. The only thing that I wanted to do in that moment was escape my own reality and escape everything I had worked so hard for. And it didn't make any sense to me that I had two healthy, beautiful kids. I had a beautiful home, an amazing career, and I didn't want any of it. And so, that alcohol it just found its way into my world, and it became my whole world a lot quicker than a lot of people imagine that it's possible. And even it was like literally was happening underneath my nose. It was like my life right as I was in it, right? And it's hard to see things when you're living in that moment. And so, of course, I was failing as a mother. Every expectation I had, I was falling short every single time, and I felt unworthy of caring for these kids. And the decisions that I started making by being under the influence and caring for my children, just the little things that I would start doing that were just like putting them into harm's way. And you'd think that two CPS cases, child protective services, I had a first hospital stay, and then a second one, and then a third one, and then a fourth one. And you think that when your secret life of being a closet drunk would collide with your business, mentality of who people and how you show up to the world every single day at work. And when they collided, it was like, you'd think that that was my rock bottom and my moment where I completely surrendered, and it wasn't. And it was like, no matter where you guys are in your journey, it's like everything is happening for a reason, and it is there as a lesson and an intervention to do something different. Because I finally started to understand, even though that wasn't where I stopped and started my sobriety journey, I was planting seeds. If I want to show up as a good mom and I want to be here and show my kids what it's like to not have parents, Michelle, keep doing what you're doing, because that's what you're showing your children. And I wanted to really show them sobriety. I didn't see that as a child, and I had every perfect example of what not to be growing up. And the thing that's interesting is this whole predisposition is that it, like, literally, I for 33 years knew not to drink and knew that it was going to be, it's bad for you. There's no benefit to drinking, Michelle. So why are you doing it? Why do you think you need to do it at 33? Well, all of the people I wanted to connect with in mommyhood, that's what they do. And that's where marketing and advertising goes is, if you want to go have fun, do this. If you need a break from your kids, go there. I have a solution to your problem. And eventually I just kept drinking those bottles looking for the solution that was never there. And I was thirsty for things that I couldn't drink. So again, connection is so big. Of like, there's other like-minded people that are struggling and feeling isolated and alone and are undiagnosed with postpartum depression, and being strong enough to say, you know what, I don't have all this figured out, and I don't got this. I'm confused. And I don't know what's going on, but me having intrusive thoughts and wanting to end my life is not normal, right? And so I got brave enough to start asking questions and start asking for help. And that's when my life started to change. And no more stealing from my kids' piggy banks, or having my husband have to take my keys and my credit card, or, showing up to work drunk. Like, you don't think it's going to happen to you. And I could have embarrassed my kids a million times over showing up with wine in my coffee mug, volunteering in their school. My dad showed up drunk in middle school doing that shit. Like, I was doing the same thing I told myself I would never do. And so, I didn't have this, I had this idea of a perfect, like, motherhood role, and it didn't go according to plan. And I finally realized that I am not a perfect mom, but I'm a perfect mom for my kids. Like, they want me. They don't care if it's chicken nuggets 3 nights in a row, or if, they don't get to watch something. Like, they just want meaningful time with me. And I'm going to normalize sobriety and show them that this is what sobriety looks like, and this is what responsibility looks like. And I'm not going to drink myself into oblivious because I don't have the parenting tools to deal with you when you're having a meltdown. I went straight to parenting classes 101. My kids are out of control. I have no boundaries with them. I always give in. I need to create consistency and structure and sobriety and make them feel safe. And that's what I've been doing ever since, is just creating a safe place for my children to land, to know that they can come to me for really hard things, and I'm going to be there, present and available to support them. So, I've had both spectrums of sober time and really, really heavy binge drinking that's led me into really dark places. And no matter how bad my day is, nothing requires a drink. Nothing, right? Utilize your tools, your boundaries. No is a complete sentence. I've had to learn that the hard way. You can't be everything to everyone, and you're never going to live up to the Joneses. Don't even try. Who wants to, right? Who cares if the PTA mom wants you to bring organic, gluten-free brownies? Kids want freaking store-bought anyway. Don't stress yourself out. So that's all I wanted to share.
You're so right. You're so right. You're always right, Michelle. Yeah. So much of that is just, when I think about, one of my things was, because I was a young mother, and because it was, we didn't live in it. They got into an expensive zip code school, but we were not expensive zip code parents. There was a lot of that mommy wine nights, and the school served wine at the PTA meetings and stuff. And then there was always an open bar for the parents at like a 6-year-old's birthday party. You're like, what is going on here? Growing up in the South, we didn't have that. So I was kind of like, what is this? Y'all are okay with me drinking around children? Okay. But yeah. So let's say, I can't see what time it is on there. So we'll just go real quick, do some quick popcorn stuff. Erin, what is your just a recent proud parenting moment that you had in recovery? Erin?
Well, Lucinda started daycare this week. I think I was mentioning to you. So, dropping her off and just trusting that it's going to be okay. I mean, I've been with her every second since she was born with the quarantine, and so that was a big deal. And just kind of like using that stress and anxiety that I had and kind of channeling it and trying to be productive for those few hours and not stressing out too much. And then, she's going to be just fine. So just letting her grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. One of the things, when it came to my kids, and actually, Michelle, it made me think about this. I remember every time I was having a hard day or a hard time, or life got really rough, my mom would always swoop in and be like, I'll take the kids to help you and leave me alone. And I'm like, in my addiction, I'm like, okay, now you just left me alone with no support, and I'm just floating around here. Like, why is taking my kids from me supposed to be this thing I love and enjoy? Like, oh, yippee, my kids are gone for the weekend. Maybe somebody could have gave me a hug and hung out with me. But like in your situation, you're letting go just enough to give yourself that time for self-care, because I know self-care is super important to you, and I know it's something you're going to be teaching in your intensive, like just how to take care of yourself a bit better.
Exactly. And it's definitely like that metaphor, I can't pour from an empty cup. I mean, I've been doing these even teaching these self-care things with her by my side, and it's great, but it's stressful. So it's nice just to have a few extra hours in the week.
Right. And they're hours that you've picked and you've decided and you've set to the side. So you actually have, because I know a lot of women struggle, especially women who are in like joint custody situations. They'll, do fine when the kids are around, but then they have to go to dad's house and they don't have a plan, because that time without your kids can be stressful. Jen, what is a proud parenting moment you have had recently?
Well, let me think. I actually have to say this whole entire freaking year, this whole year of COVID and my son being home, and, I like I said, I definitely didn't have much visions for myself, and definitely becoming a teacher was not in the cards for me. But here I am. And I feel, it's been hard, and I've really had to, it's been difficult as a mom because I haven't been able to fix everything, and he's struggled with some anxiety and, just some things that, struggling being at home and away from his friends and structure and all that stuff. But we've really been walking through it together. And, he told me the other day on my 10 years, actually on Saturday, we were just talking about it because I talk to my kids about everything. They know that mommy doesn't drink alcohol. I don't get too in detail about, stuff age appropriately. So we celebrate every year. And he just said, Mom, I'm just really, I love you a lot. And thank you for always, sitting with me. And I thought, oh, wow, like it matters. It really matters. I wasn't able to fix everything. And I would go to bed at night and worry and think, oh my God, I don't have the answers. But really what he wanted and what he noticed was that I just stayed there. I was there. So that I'm really proud of him. And that makes me really proud of myself also, that, we've made it a whole year and like everybody's alive. And, we're able to walk through something really hard, and both of us, and neither of us gave up. So that's probably my proudest moment recently. Yeah.
I can hop in real quick. So yeah, mine, I would say related to the pandemic too. It's like, I think the one thing that I did that was really, well, lots of things, I'm not going to diminish it, but, is really checking in with both my kids in regards to their emotional and mental health. I think it's hard to get wrapped up into all of the things that we're dealing with as parents and adulting. And a lot of people weren't leaning in and asking their kids. They were sponges and they're hearing all of these things. And, to be able to say, how are you dealing with it? Because my kids are at the age where all it is outlets with sports and school. And when both of those are out, it's like they're left inside with video games and hearing, what's going on through media all day long. And so, I was there and I was present and I was sober to have really hard conversations and to keep them safe and to keep them entertained. And I wouldn't have done that if I was drinking. I would have been completely absent and they would have had another reason to worry. And so, showing sobriety through really hard times in a pandemic and showing up and suiting up when it's time to do that, I know is something that they're very proud that mommy's a sober mom, and that they wear that like a badge of honor. It's pretty super cute. So that would be mine.
I love that. My kids, one thing that I like, but also sometimes it's like, oh man, my oldest son seems to have this idea that mom can fix everything. So we recently took down a sexual predator. That's what we did over quarantine. It's like, he's like, Mom, do you know anybody that could, I'm like, oh, let me call the FBI. Yeah, I'll have to fill you in on that one. Most recent, I would say mine fall with the pandemic as well, but I will say this was big for me. When I was drinking, my kids didn't want me around. They literally were like, Mom, can you just go to the bar? Like, you can go now. Like they used to after dinner be like, you can go now. Cause in the way my son put it was, you were always hungover and mean. Like we liked it better when you went to the bar. And I'm like, oh my God. But now my kids like literally always want to be with me. Which I guess at 17 and 13, a lot of people are having issues with their kids, but my kids are like, this is like their second chance at having a mom. But one of the things I'm super proud of myself for is that I reached out to Michelle the other day for some help. And I would have never, when I was drinking, had that kind of support system to have someone or know someone or even be attached to the situation enough to go, I need outside eyes. Because like, you know, I think maybe when I was using, the fear was it was me. Because I thought, like Jen was saying, was that I was just inherently horrible at everything and broken and bad. So if my kids were having a hard time, it had to be my fault. But now I can reach out when I need to reach out. And to kind of go back to the statement about, you know, the times that people thought they were giving me a break by taking my kids, when really I needed connection. I needed love. I needed somebody to tell me I was doing a good job. I think that's something about all of us on this panel. I think that we are all for strong women that lift up other women. And I think that's something that makes everyone on this panel very, very special and unique, because I heard some like psychological, sociological kind of studies they did about why there's mean girls. And it's like girls are raised to be nice but not assertive. So you're more likely to become passive aggressive, and then you get the mean girl dynamic. And I feel so privileged to have a network of women that encourage people to reach out and speak out and say their needs. Because, you know, I think we can all agree that, you know, that sobriety helps us process our needs, ask for help, have the clarity to do that. But with that, I will move into kind of a fun question. What would be your ideal Mother's Day? And we'll start with just popcorn, Erin.
Something that involves going swimming. Okay, so first of all, I guess sleeping in, but I don't even know if that's a possibility anymore. So we'll try sleeping in, and then going to, somewhere with a pool and a hot tub and a steam room where I can just, you know, use the facility for multiple hours, and Mexican food. So nachos, enchiladas, and like some Diet Coke. So that sounds great for me. And then wrapping it up with like a Law and Order marathon, or you know,
Erin,
some Real Housewives.
I was accidentally given a Diet Coke with my order today, so
I love it.
And there's a pool over here. Come over.
God. At that apartment? Okay, I will.
I'm seeing Erin.
Oh, and adding some coffee to the day too. So we got pool, coffee, Diet Coke, Mexican food.
Here too. Do you want some Nespresso?
Yeah.
Erin, 100%. I will get you over this bridge and hang out with me.
Yes.
Okay. Jen, whom I wish lived across a bridge from me, but is no longer living under a bridge. What is
Hilarious. Okay, so my idea, I should say something very mama-ish and spending the day with my kids and all that shit, but I'm gonna say be truthful, and my ideal Mother's Day would be by myself in a hotel room with like a massage, a pool, like have sushi delivered, and watch Netflix, junk Netflix documentaries that I love so much, and like have nobody needing me to wipe their butts or, you know, interfere in an argument or do homework, just by myself. I mean, I love my kids, disclaimer, but I would love, I would love some time to myself. Yeah, that would be ideal for me, for sure.
Yeah. So here's what I have to tell you. So I took, well, you know about my solo trip to Hawaii when in early sobriety. But my favorite day of that whole vacation, a tropical rain came. I like had the windows open. I laid naked in my bed, ordered room service, and watched Forensic Files all day. That was the best day of the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, I just need some good old Forensic Files. But This Is Messed Up is a podcast you need to listen to. I'm addicted. It's about Law and Order SVU. I'll send you the, and Erin, we got a big stapler thing going. So, let's say, Michelle, what is your ideal Mother's Day?
I think it'd be a mixture of both. I've always gone back and forth. Is it supposed to be like a day because that's how come I'm a mother? Or should it be by myself? And so I think, you know, I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean. And I just don't want to have to make any decisions. So, you know, enjoying them doing something that's like already done. So like takeout or going to the beach or doing something, you know, as a family, but not having to cook and clean and do homework and be a referee and all those
like
things.
You want a picnic, but you don't want to pack the picnic.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Be
I
like,
want it catered.
Yeah. Yeah, for my picnic. They do that here in New York. You can go to La Pon and buy what they call a picnic basket.
I want it to be free though. Like, don't cost anything.
Well, I have to tell you guys. So for me, Mother's Day, I quit celebrating at one point because I would take my kids out to eat, to sit and watch other mothers get like diamond bracelets and flowers, and I'm sitting there paying for my own like Mother's Day brunch like a dweeb. But I think like what you want to do on Mother's Day kind of depends on your kids' ages, to be honest with you. I feel like when they're little, like you want the sleep in and you want the spa trip and stuff. But for me, now that mine are like 17 and 13, I'm like, please do something with me, guys. I love you.
You can totally guilt him into it and be like, you know, it's like, I'm your mom. Like, this is my special day. I gave birth to you.
I left a credit card at the apartment and was like, just dropping some hints. Mom would like a massage. But yes, okay. I see. So it's 8:00. Let's just kind of
I have some comments from social media and a couple of questions from our attendees that I want to go over.
Perfect.
One of them is from Crystal. She's just saying, hey. The next one is from Nate, who is from the Sober Crew. And he said, keep up the great work that y'all are doing. And then we have Nikki, who said, thank you from this sober mom in South Dakota. Sobriety strong since June 14th. And then we have Maro, who said, these ladies are so inspiring. And here is our first question from Maro. He said, how do the ladies reward themselves after challenging situations as mothers, being how drugs and alcohol isn't an option? So this is open floor. Anyone can answer.
Cake?
All the money I use, I put into like either new running shoes or, you know, a new book, I'll buy myself fresh flowers, a smoothie. Like there's so many good ways to reward myself and treat myself, because that's huge for me in my sobriety journey. I have to give myself kudos, because if I don't, like, I'll start to fall back in my own way. So family trips, like little and big things, have been really cool for me, that are incentives to keep going. I mean, I saved so much money that I'm like, let's just do this and like have something fun to do with, you know, the money that I'm not wasting on mind altering chemicals that are killing me.
Yeah, something to look forward to is key for me, definitely. Whether it's something small or big, like, you know, moving to a new apartment soon with a 2-bedroom, little baby gets her own room, which is so exciting. But to the question from Morrow, I will answer with having my husband cook me dinner. Morrow's my
Oh, and I think
So I was just gonna say, Morrow, you can also cook dinner for your wife's friend.
I was I vote for that as well. I'll send my
So
address.
I'll bring the Diet Coke for her.
Yeah, I go with what everyone's saying for sure. For me too, is that I treat myself to, so I'm like, it's very interesting. This is like the gift of sobriety and healing work, is that, you know, you can go from nothing to literally finding joy in small things. Like I'm into bath bombs. Like I used to eat from garbage cans, and today I have these special bath bombs that are like my very faves, and I treat myself to those bath bombs, or special, like I have special seltzers I like, and sometimes it's little, sometimes I plan, you know, a beach trip and we save for it, and, you know, it's like a weekend. But yeah, it's important, I think, to really remind yourself of, you know, where you came from and where you are today, and, you know, give yourself little, you know, gifts of encouragement and rewards. And yeah, and I eat a lot of food too. My first thought when you said when the question was how do you reward yourself, I was just gonna say food. But yeah, I love food.
So with that money thing though, I mean, it's so true. And when I first got sober, I had an obsession with candles. I think everyone does that. Your first year of sobriety, you just like buy all the candles.
Or oils, one of the two.
Yeah, candles or oils. I don't know. We just got to smell the world. Funny story on that. My ex-boyfriend, I had his credit card, and I went to TJ Maxx and bought like $400 in candles. And he's like, "You get enough candles?" I'm like, "I didn't buy any candles." And he's like, "You know, it like pops up on my phone." It's like, oh, oops. But yeah, that just having the money to finally do those little things that I liked. And I feel like when I was drinking, a lot of the things I would do for myself were really just my excuse to use, or they were things other people had kind of convinced me was what mothers wanted. But what really makes me happy is buying like new paint for my art journal. You know, so investing in myself, like how Michelle was saying, new running shoes or stuff. The fact that I have money to invest in myself and still have money to invest in my kids. Like my son came by and needed $150 for wrestling, and I was able to write a check without being like, okay, well, don't give it to him till Tuesday, and we're only eating macaroni this week. I mean, like, those are wins.
Yeah. I can definitely relate. It's like having the money sitting there for even the daycare, just like, it's a big deal. You know, we would never have that little amount. It's not that little in New York, that amount of money for just, you know, being responsible with it. I mean, you know, it's just something that was not happening in the past. It was a day-to-day financial situation as much as it was, you know, using. It's really great to be a little more responsible. You know, it feels good.
Definitely. And then just kind of circling back to first year of sobriety, we have a question from one of our attendees, which is when, for you guys, did the cravings get easier?
for me, you know, I don't know if it got easier. I just got more strategic in how I chose to deal with it.
Mhm.
And so I truly live by this motto, like when you have a head full of sobriety, drinking is never the same. And so every pocket of time I had, whether I was folding laundry, driving my kids to soccer practice, like I'm still going to see the same people, places, and things, but my mindset and my attitude are going to be a little bit like, you know, stronger to surf that urge to engage in that self-destructive behavior. And so if I'm constantly, you know, plugging in new information and motivation and tips and hacks and tools, it quiets the noise in my head and it allows me an opportunity to just fight that a little bit harder and stronger. And they'll always be there, but I have more tools and confidence and momentum with the more sobriety days I have that are consecutive, that knowing that this isn't supposed to be done perfect. And so I just get stronger and more confident in my ability to say, you know what, I liked how I felt yesterday. I think I want to do it again tomorrow. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I definitely felt so horrible for so long that when I started to feel physically a little bit better, I loved it. And so it took me a long time for the cravings to stop, but I did use some medication and these just looking forward to things, and the fact that I was so sick that feeling a little better, the contrast was so great that I just went with those things. But all of it helped. And yeah, it did eventually go away. They went away for the most part. Yeah. Pretty soon actually after I finally quit, but it took a while until then.
Yeah, I want to say I was surprised because, like I said, I entered sobriety and made the decision pretty much in the dark. Like it really wasn't until I joined Instagram 3-4 months, like maybe 4 months into my sobriety, that I even had a network of people. But I had this image painted in my head from TV and movies that as soon as I quit, I was going to be walking around just like, I want to drink, and like hulking out and like seeing people drinking and like salivating. And I will say I isolated for a while, but I was in a position where I was able to do that. I just kind of was going to therapy, working out a lot, and sleep. Like, just like your body needs to heal and rest up. Like if you find yourself, like I think a lot of people think of that first year, you got to get everything going, right? You got to get going fast. And that's not the case at all. Like for me, I think it's important to kick back, relax, let your body heal. As far as cravings, I'd say after about 6 months of just feeling really good and just finding myself physically feeling better, and then I started taking an antidepressant and I was in therapy. That was about the time I quit having those thoughts to go down to the bar. I live over a bar. I just want to make that. I got sober living on top of a bar. So it was one thing I had to realize is that I was using drinking as a way to procrastinate. So the times that I felt the urge to go have a drink were usually when I had to do something I didn't want to do. And so I think that to help keep your cravings at bay, kind of like when you do have a craving, stop and sit in that feeling and try to be like, what is going on right now that makes me want to? And for me, oftentimes it was procrastination or just hangry. I'm usually hangry, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So yeah, I say about 6 months of doing good, solid work. Jan?
Yeah, I would agree with everybody here. I think everyone's different. I think every drug is different. And I also think there's a difference between a physical craving and like emotional craving. And so like there is actual time length, you know, biologically and physically for different drugs and different, you know, lengths of and excess of using. And physical cravings for me, you know, I had a rough time. I had a really hard time in the beginning. You know, I was a heroin and meth user. So for me, it was like, I was real sick without it. But emotional cravings, I think were actually the trickiest for me because I had no idea how to feel things. I had never done that before. And so like everything hurt, every little feeling, every little slight word or, you know, thought hurt me so much. I just had no resilience, I think, at that time. And so probably the most important thing I did for myself in that early, which everybody's early, quote unquote, early recovery is different, you know, lengths of time. But for me, I would say my early recovery phase was definitely the first 2 or 3 years, because I had used for so long. But I kept a very tight ship. Like for me, I was not around anyone who used or drank. Like I just couldn't, because I knew that I needed to keep myself in as safest nest as I possibly could. Now I know people who get sober and immediately go out and have no problem being around people. You know, everybody's totally different. But for me, I was very fragile. And so I would get emotional. And then if there would have been something next to me, I cannot sit on this panel and say that I would not have gone back. So I had to make sure I was very safe and I had all my things were out. I was not around anybody who used. And I had my support system as best as I could. And I slowly got the tools to learn how to feel things. And that's really that honestly is what recovery is for me, is learning how to feel my feelings more than learning not to use. So it definitely gets better because I didn't get sober to be miserable. Like I would not be here for 10 years. I would have been gone back out. I mean, I did not get sober to feel like shit or feel emotional or feel, you know, tortured or white knuckling it. Like, no, it does get better. Like I always tell people, please don't judge how you're feeling now by this is how sobriety will be, because it's not. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
A friend of mine is trying to do the This Naked Mind like 30-day challenge, and he was talking to me about it. He was saying in the book, he is like, I have one fundamental problem with the book. It's like she says everything is gonna be better. She says everything going out's gonna be better. You'll have a better time than every person in the room. And he's like I don't like, he's like, I don't know, that seems a little far reaching. And I said to him, I said, here's the deal. I said, in the moment when I said, I've been at nightclubs surrounded with half the Jets players and a bunch like all these like, you know, whatever. And I'm at the club and it's fun for a little bit. And then everybody's so sloppy. I'm like, I got yoga in the morning. I'm like, your version of fun is probably not going to fit into that old narrative anymore. And that's a good thing. Like when you can show up to, I love that I can go to my friend's birthday party, dance, be stupid, like do whatever, and wake up and be dancing around my house and having a good time with my kids. So there's not, you know, I'm not gonna say, you know, and it's the same, if drinking and drug use wasn't at some point fun, we wouldn't have friggin' done it. You know, and it's the same with like Jen saying with sobriety. Like if sobriety sucked, I wouldn't be doing it for this long. Like, believe me.
So I would love to popcorn off of that with our final question of the night from one of our attendees. And they ask, what were the signs that you needed help? I haven't had a rock bottom or even close, but I worry that even though I'm functioning pretty well, like, and then it just trails off. So let's start with Michelle, and then we'll go to Erin, Martha, Jen, and then I will do the closing.
I think that's the thing. It's so hard when you haven't, I don't think there is a rock bottom. I think that there's, I thought rock bottom had a basement when I found, myself in the hospital again. And I think you can explore your relationship with alcohol at any time. And if you start to see it becoming problematic in your life, you can take a closer look at that and explore what would it look like if I took a break from drinking and test drove sobriety. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? See if you can keep your promise to yourself and see if you can say, I'm going to do 14 days or I'm going to do 30 days and see how you feel, because this is poison that we're ingesting. It's not healthy. It doesn't add a benefit, but you're doing it for a reason. And it's okay to let go of something that no longer serves you, even though everybody else is doing it. So it's like, you don't have to wait for it to be that bad or problematic to decide, dairy hurts my stomach, so I'm not going to eat it. I'm a non-meat eater. I'm a non-drinker. Like, as much as I own it and normalize it, but you have to be ready and you have to say, you know what, this doesn't serve a purpose, or I found another way to cope, because we keep going back because it does serve a purpose. So lean into that and say, what benefit do I believe this to be true? And then challenge that. Does it really ease my anxiety? Does it really help me sleep? The answer is probably no. And so those are my thoughts. I'll let the other moms chime in.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're thinking of that question for yourself, chances are there's something nagging to you that's telling you it might be detrimental in some way. For me, I knew physically, they told me I had fatty liver disease. So that was like the beginning of liver disease. But before that, for years, I knew that there were several things in my life that weren't going as they would have gone had I not been getting wasted all the time. For years and years, I just knew in the back of my head, life wasn't as it could be, not using all the time. So even from when I started, I knew I loved drinking. My first sip, and years later, has just gotten so out of hand. But technically, it was when they said I had liver disease, so I had to stop. But I think everybody's different, just like Michelle said. And if you have even a question in your mind, give sobriety a try, and maybe you'll find that you don't miss drinking and you like it better.
So for me, I mean, God, rock bottom. I mean, like, technically, if by most people's standards, I had 10 I could think of off the top of my head. I mean, I have a scar right here from where I went on vacation, got trashed on an airplane with the guy sitting next to me, got off the airplane, tripped and fell in a parking lot and put my tooth through my bottom lip. That's fun. That's like nearly losing my two front teeth and, disfiguring my face. Probably should have been a wake-up call. 4 DUIs, wake-up call. But the real wake-up call for me, sadly, was a suicide attempt. And I wish that those nagging feelings, those thoughts, those opportunities that I had to cut it out before that, I had listened to my gut, because there had been so many times where I tried to cut back. I tried to, I would go on crazy, but I had crazy benders. I was like the dad from somebody tell me the name of the show, where he ends up in like Canada one day. Anyway, whatever. But I had like multi-state benders where I would like show up in another state. And then like for a few days after that, I'd be like, oh God, I feel so awful. I should stop doing this. Like, but then it's like all of a sudden I just would forget that nagging feeling. Sorry, Bella's barking. But the thing is that what's so scary about suicide attempts while drinking is that a lot of people really do lose their lives because I didn't know how depressed I actually was, to be honest with you. I remember in the months before, I had kind of started asking friends about telling them my last wishes, being like, thinking who's going to take care of my kids. And then that Christmas, I just happened to get drunk enough to black out and try it. And a lot of people do that, and especially men will choose like a weapon and they won't survive that. Me, I took all the pills in my house. So my point in that being is I wish I listened to that little voice a little sooner before I had a rock bottom that was so iffy. It's like it's a miracle I'm still here. But if, like Erin said, if you're asking yourself that question, you're already there. And I wouldn't wish, the shame, the hurt, the pain, the fear that I went through, waking up in a panic, like, what did I just try to do? That's pretty bad rock bottom. And you don't have to get that bad. You can just quit. Not that it's that easy, but I mean, the choice. Jen?
Yeah, I really actually love what Erin said. I think a big clue to whether there's something going on. Sorry, my kids have just invaded this whole entire panel. Whether there's, a relationship with alcohol or drugs, whatever, that, might need to be reassessed is just having that question. I think people that drink without problem don't even question it. And so I think that's beautiful. I think that's seriously beautiful to even say, like, I'm not sure, but possibly this isn't feeling good for me anymore. Possibly something. And for myself, there is no rock bottoms, believe it or not. I just would have kept digging. There was just a moment that I finally gave away the shovel. And I think that, asking those questions and for me, it was the whys. Why am I doing this? What is this doing for me? Because it did serve me. It really did serve me at a time. Was to help me get through pain that I didn't know how to process at the time. And so maybe asking ourselves why, what is this doing? Like Michelle was saying, why am I drinking, or what, why? And after and there's a quote, and I don't know who it belongs to, but it's something along the lines of, once you learn why you drink, it's not as fun anymore. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but that is so poignant to my life. Is like, once I learned the whys that I was using, it doesn't look as fun anymore, because whoa. Yeah.
I'm on the same boat as that. Like, once I realized what those benders were about and what was contributing to them. And I remember very vividly a post you made, Jen, about your drinking and drug use was, in a way, the things that kept you safe until you had better tools. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all touched on this in some way, is that we replaced our substance of choice with better tools. Like, we all had some kind of difficulty navigating life without substances, but then we figured out how to do it without them. And I know sometimes it may sound like people that are talking about recovery could be oversimplifying things or overcomplicating things, but statements like that are so true. Like, once you know why, it's like, oh God, this isn't a fun thing.
well, then you can start doing the work. For me, it was never fun. I never went out. I literally drank in my closet until I passed out. That was my primary goal, was to get drunk and black out. There was no adultery, there was no dancing, there was no friendships, there was no partying, going out. It was literally going to the market, getting my stuff, telling people I was going upstairs to do laundry, and chugging, forget the glasses. Like, I was literally chugging it as fast as I could out of a bottle, as fast as I could, to escape my own reality. So it's just like, it was the pain, it was my medicine, it was my only way of escaping what I knew to be true. Like, I was running from myself and my past. So, and I know that there's people that can relate to that. So, it's so hard, but it's so worth it. Regardless, just keep asking questions, regardless of, if it's not today, tomorrow, just keep the spark alive, that there might be, a glimmer of hope, that you might want to explore what it's like of being authentically you and starting to heal through some of the trauma and pain that has brought you to the place that you are right now. And, we're all worth it.
So I have a quick question posed to everybody, because I love how you just brought up being authentically you. And for me, that has been one of the most surprising parts of sobriety for me, is and I hear this a lot, especially from people in high performance jobs, especially like being in New York, we all have bankers and stuff like that. They're like, well, I might be a different person, or I'll lose my edge, or people won't like me anymore. And I'm like, I was surprised to find out that the authentic me is pretty friggin' awesome, and I love her. Like, authentic me hath no fucks to give, and I love that about myself. But I also found that I just like me, and if anybody just wanted some words of encouragement for people who may be concerned about finding out who they are without alcohol or without drugs.
Well, the person I was drinking didn't even exist. It wasn't even a real person. So it's like, for me to have confidence now, to not be that chameleon, to have to like check the temperature in the room of who I have to be and how I have to show up. If I can't show up in a room and be my authentic self, I'm in the wrong room. And I am only going to be sitting at the table with people who, like, I learned to, like, if I walk into a room and I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong damn room. Like, I want to be inspired and encouraged, and I want to dream big, and that my drinking was holding me back from all of that. Like, I'm learning that I don't like certain colors, and I like certain flavors of food and music. Like, I was living a life of who I thought people wanted me to show up and be, and to be who I am and own it. It's freaking awesome. I love it.
I've always said I had this thing where I just acted like I really love tacos, but it turns out I really just like margaritas. Hi, it's one of my favorite little girls. But yeah, like that whole big thing, like tacos were huge, and I was like, yeah, I love tacos. Since I got sober, I barely ate a taco. I liked margaritas. But Erin,
Yeah, I mean, when I started drinking, I was just painfully shy. And so then I carried on, I didn't know who I was. And if I did, I was too scared to show who that was. So when I finally got sober, it's taken a long time to realize who I am and to be okay with that, and to not try to hide, like, okay, I'm a chill person. I'm not a loud person, and that's okay. I'm not going to pretend to be this person, and that's okay. It's just really hard to get there, but I'm working on it. And it's like Michelle said, like, I'm so tired of being a chameleon and morphing to whoever I'm talking to, and just, trying to be like this for this person or this for this person. So having been a using non-sober person for my whole adult life, it's taken some time to step into myself, but it feels good, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying again. And I think for me too, something that's been really important is to find my people. Like, not everybody's going to be your people. And I think, when we first get sober, we don't know who our people are, and we maybe don't even have any people. And so we like gravitate towards whoever. But then as we kind of like get our footing and kind of learn about ourselves, like I didn't know about myself. I had no idea what I liked. I had no idea if I had hobbies. I had no idea what I like to eat, nothing. And so I did kind of just adopt what everybody told me that I should like. And then especially in the last 5 years, I've really like learned like, you know what, I don't like that. Or, I don't want to say that anymore. I don't believe that's true to my heart anymore. And you just slowly, or I slowly have just been able to slowly but surely kind of go, okay, I don't have to stick with this person if this person makes me feel bad about who I really am. And to go where the love is, and, find your people, because your people are out there. Like we all have people that are meant to be our people and meant to support us. And the ones that we feel the best when we walk away from, we feel good about ourselves and celebrated just as we are. Like, yeah, I think that's so important to me, even right now at 10 years, like that's huge for me, is to continue to find my people.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here and for participating in the event. I hope you all have a really happy and wonderful Mother's Day, as well as any other mother who has tuned in. And thank you so much to everybody from Soberocity for tuning in and staying with us tonight. I know we went a little bit over, but we were just having such amazing, great conversations, and I thank everybody for being just so vulnerable and open with us. Be sure to follow Soberocity for updates on more panels like these, and consider subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/Soberocity, to support the programming of events such as these. Our next panel will be hosted on Friday, May 28th at 7 p.m. EST, and is our panel in honor of May being Mental Health Awareness Month, entitled Mental Health, the Good, the Bad, and the Sober. This panel will be featuring Icon for Hire's Ariel Bloomer and Sean Jump, as well as Michelle Smith from tonight's panel, Amanda E. White, LCL, and Dr. Elise Ho. For tickets, go to soberocity.ticketbud.com/mental health panel. Is there anything that y'all would like to plug, or anywhere that people could find you if they would like to?
All my stuff is on my Instagram at Martha Recovering Out Loud, and my blog is myoutloudrecovery.com. And I just look forward to continuing work with Soberocity. And also, everybody, screw Build-A-Bear. Don't buy a bear there ever again. I don't know, check out my page if you want to figure out why Build-A-Bear is like they're kind of dumb right now. Anyway, moving on. And thank you everybody for coming. And I just want to thank Erin, Jen, and Michelle for making this Mother's Day super special for me, because I honestly, I was like, I gotta stay silly or I'm gonna cry, because you three ladies mean the world to me, and I love you so much.
Thank you. And I'm Recovery is the New Black, and I have a private Facebook community for women, and I'm a host at Sober Mom Squad. So just know you guys are not alone in this, and we're stronger together. And there's so many people questioning their relationship with alcohol at any level, and it's never too late or too early to explore recovery, period. So all are welcome. Happy Mother's Day to everybody.
I'm a Sober Pilates Mom on Instagram, and also REVA Recovery, REVA Recovery on Instagram. And we have a Facebook group with some free movement classes and support group and meditations. So happy Mother's Day to everybody, and thank you, Soberocity. Thanks, Martha, so much, and Jen and Michelle. Awesome to see you. Love you all.
And I am Resurrection with a K _of_me on Instagram. I'm also a host at the Sober Mom Squad. And if you want to learn about harm reduction and what we do there, you can visit the Sidewalk project. And I just wanted to say that I love everybody just the way that they are. And happy Mother's Day. And if Mother's Day is rough for you, just know that you are not alone. Yeah. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, thank y'all so much. It's time for Twinkle Twinkle Good Night Time, and we'll see y'all very soon.